Hi everyone, Diane here. Today we're painting this soft and lovely lavender and bees scene, and I'll show you a special technique that I've developed just for effects like this. Before we dive in though, I'll quickly share what's happening in the studio, including our World Watercolor Month plus prompt sheets for July. Stay to the end for a glimpse of real lavender and bees in the garden, plus a special trio of reference photos for members only on YouTube and Patreon. Welcome to my studio. Today I thought it might be a nice idea to introduce the video with just a quick look around what's on my desk at the moment. And some of these things I will be talking to you about as we go forward. But as you can see, my desk is a very busy little place, and we have loads and loads of stuff here which I use sometimes and which I spend quite a lot of time organising and tidying up so that I can actually get on with some work. And just to start with, I'm going to show you this painting, which I did last night, and I've got one or two things I'd quite like to say about it, so let's do that. So as you know, I do like to share whatever I know with everybody who watches me, and occasionally I come up against some new and different and interesting ideas, or I think of something myself, all by myself, from my own brain, which luckily for me still works, fingers crossed. Anyway, so as you know, just recently we've been doing quite a lot of experimenting, I have anyway, with gouache, because as I said, and I did go into this in some depth, I've done gouache painting before in the past, and in some ways it's easier. Well, it is easier. I think it's easier than watercolor, but that's not the point. The point is, if you change mediums from time to time, add a new medium into what you do, sometimes, and I think often is probably as much the case, often it will feed into your other, perhaps your first love, your best love, which might be watercolor. And this is what I'm finding actually is happening here. And at the same time, you can develop a new skill which might be, if nothing else, entertaining for you, so you can have a break from all the challenges that watercolor throws up at you. And while I was working with the gouache and producing paintings a bit like this one, which is gouache being used like watercolor, exactly like watercolor, with the exception of the overlays on the petals there. It's while I was doing this and I was thinking to myself, this is like acrylic really, in a way, what I'm trying to do with this. And then I thought, oh goodness me, it's ages since I painted in acrylic. I wonder if I should start doing that again. And then I thought, well, first thing I have to do is get a book about acrylics, because I looked on my quite extensive bookshelf behind me here, and I couldn't find anything about acrylic. Yet, you know, I used to paint in it all the time. Still have got a huge drawer of the things. They've probably all gone hard by now. So anyway, I'll show you this book, which is by somebody called Adrian Burrows. I think it's English. Let me see who published it. It's not very old. I got it from Abe Books online. And if you don't know about Abe Books, do go and have a look on there, because any book that you think of buying from Amazon, for example, sometimes you can get a second-hand copy on Abe Books at a fraction of the price, especially if you're in America or England. And me being in France here, I end up paying quite a lot for the postage, so sometimes it doesn't work out. But yeah, no, abebooks.com, they have branches everywhere. They're affiliated with Amazon, I think, or owned by them at least. But they do have a vast, huge catalogue of books. You probably mostly all know this, but I didn't until recently. This was first published in 2018 by, Guild of Master Craftsman Publications Limited, Castle Place, High Street, Lewes. I used to live near Lewes because I used to go to university in Lewes, University of Sussex. Anyway, this chap, and Adrian Burrows, don't know who he is. Haven't looked yet. He runs a graphic design business in the southeast of England, teaches art, specialises in figure drawing and painting. He firmly believes anyone can paint to an acceptable standard as long as they have enthusiasm and a sincere desire to learn. And I would put myself in that bracket. I don't think I have any special talent. I've just worked hard at it all my life. Anyway, so I got this and I thought, oh, yes, I remember this, all these ideas. And basically, he uses acrylic as if it was oil. And he starts off with his instructional tutorials, what do you call them, project. His project starts with, this is what you do with oil. You do a background like that, and you gradually build it up and build it up and build it up until you get to here. It's an incredibly boring painting, and I would never do anything like that. But on the next page, and by this time I'm thinking to myself, I think I could apply these principles to gouache. So next page we have this, and this is the sort of thing that we often paint, something like that in watercolor. And I thought, oh, I wonder how that would work out in gouache. So I had a go at it, and this is what I produced. And I have to say, I'm quite pleased with that. It's dried completely different to what I left it last night. The background was much, much darker. So I'm going to say, with my hand on my heart, that gouache dries lighter, or at least this gouache does. And I was able to start off, I put the background over the whole thing, let it dry. Then I drew in the outline of the different flowers and the glass of water in white paint. And then I went over it, and then I went over it again and again and again, changing things, getting the details right, and putting shadows in where I thought was the right places. In other words, it's just like a little mini oil painting, a little mini acrylic painting, but it doesn't have the shine of acrylic. It's completely matte, and it's a little gouache painting. So I just wanted to show you that so that you can see that you can do either this kind of thing, or this kind of thing with gouache. This was yesterday's, or today's actually, challenge. This is day 28 of our watercolor challenge, and this is gouache used in a complete watercolor style. I can't tell the difference between watercolor and gouache the way I do it, but that's just me, because of course I'm not using it in the fully transparent way. So there we are. That's a little look at what I've been up to lately. And I've been working in charcoal, not charcoal, this is chalk pencil, just playing around for some point. I probably was listening to something and I was just wanting to doodle while I was listening. And I have this week, so I'll put a link to this book if you're in any way interested. I don't know if he's written any others. Maybe he's written others on other subjects, other mediums. I don't know. I tell you what, I paid a lot more than £1.50 for it. A lot more than that. But someone's making a profit somewhere on these books. Anyway, never mind. Another book that not another book. Another thing that I acquired this week was my De La Rowney gouache paints. This is the set of 12 basics. It didn't come like this, it was in a box. But we've got the 12 basic colours, the limited palette plus permanent rose. Well, it's not that, it's a limited palette altogether, because you've got your warm and your cool of each primary, and then we've got peach and black added in too. Actually, there are 3 blues. There's ultramarine, cerulean. What it lacks is greens. Now, isn't that funny? Okay, so I'm going to clear my desk and I'm now going to start a painting. So I've got my paints and my paper and everything out, and I've also just been out into the garden and picked some lavender. Our lavender is doing really, really well this year. It's absolutely beautiful colour. I can't tell whether or not you'll be able to see the beautiful deep, deep colour of this lavender. I'm having problems myself with my glasses. So I'm finding actually at the moment that I don't need my glasses on while I'm painting. In fact, I'm better off without. But anyway, so there we are. That's what the lavender looks like. It's got lots of different shades of lavender in it. It's got dark purple, a lighter purple, even a pinkish kind of thing. And there's quite a lot of green going on. And this one, I don't know whether this is true lavender. It doesn't seem to want to open. It looks as if it's still at its bud phase. So that might be an interesting contrast in the painting to have 1 or 2 like that. And I've just popped it in a vase and I'm going to put that there in front of me. I'm going to use this Meaden set, not for any other reason other than, if you look on the colour swatch, you can see that they've got them all nicely arranged in a line where all the purples are together. And we've got blue, violet, purple, plum purple, deep magenta, cerise pink, and Barbie pink. Now, I don't think we'll be using Barbie, but all the others I think could be easily made use of in this painting. And this set has also got a good range of greens, so you don't have to mix your greens. You've got and there's another one here, and there's a blue-green there. So there's lots of greens here for your stalks and things to make that easy. And before I start painting, I'm going to go to my swatch book here, and I have actually, this is a page that I've partially used, and I'm going to use that to try out these colours just to make sure that I've got them all in the right place and I know what I'm working with. Because the other day I took them all out for another painting, and I just want to check what they look like, first of all, and whether I've got them in the right places. So in theory, I'll just write on here what this is. This is Meaden 48 set. And what we should have, first of all, is cerise pink, I think. Yes, cerise. So I'm using this in a different way to the normal. Then we'll have deep magenta. This isn't what I normally do, but why not? And this is plum purple. And this should be purple. It's hard to write sideways, isn't it? And this should be violet. And then we've got over here, oh no, that's a metallic, so we won't be using that. So I think that's all we have in the way of the purple. So I'm just going to check to see what they look like. The cerise is this one. And you see, we might not necessarily use it as bright as that in the actual painting. I'll use the dirty water to clean my brush, not the clean. But we might want to mix it with, for example, the second one along, which is deep magenta, which is this one. Or any of the purples, just to moderate it a little bit, just to, you know. And this is plum purple, I hope. Looks about right, yeah. I think they could have made these two a little bit more distinct from one another, but hey-ho, they're not bad. Then we've got purple here. And yeah, I seem to have got them back in the right places. And you can see that that is a good violet for our lavender. And then violet itself, which is here. Again, they're a little bit too similar for my absolute liking, but not too bad. Once they're dry, they'll probably be a little bit different. And then the greens that I'm going to use, I think we'll probably start with grass green. I don't think I'll use jade. I think I'll use olive and deep green and black green and possibly light green. Okay, so then that means that we have got grass green, which is number 2 here. That's this colour. And if you're not sure about your colours, okay, not that one. If you're not sure about your colours, this is olive. You might want to do some trial mixes before you start. Mixing, for example, grass green with olive green will give you something between the two. Mixing grass green with black green is going to also be interesting, isn't it? So now we've got deep green, which is, that's the 5th one along, so that's this one. It's not a very realistic green, but if you add a yellow to it, then it does become more realistic. This is black green. That's lovely for shadows in the background, of course. And then light green is sitting up here. It's more of a pastel. It's not transparent, this one. Doesn't even claim to be. But that might also be useful. So there we are. That's my chosen palette. So it's this row here minus that one, this row minus that one, and that one and that one. And so now we can actually get started. So I shall put that somewhere where I can see it, because that is actually going to be quite useful. And I might write here lavender, for lavender. So in future, if I want to paint lavender, I can come back and look at that. If I like the painting that I produce, I'll be able to say, oh yeah, I've got that swatched out somewhere. You could start with a sketch if you wanted to. You don't have to though. And what I'm going to do is I am going to mix up a little bit of, I'll probably use, one of these brushes. This is a quill brush. I finally managed to learn the name of it. Meaden have got these now. It's a new product for them. And in the background, I'm going to paint a kind of splashy, washy background. So we'll just chuck some water on here. Kind of la-di-da. This is the easiest way to do this. I don't want to be too precise. So I can't even see where it's going. I'm just going to trust that that's enough. Let that sit for a second or two. And then the colour that we want in the background will be the violet, which is this one. So I'm going to take that from here and put it here. And I might add a little bit of this plum colour, no, not that one, this one, to it, just to make it a little bit warmer. That one, yeah. Okay, and then I'm going to spray it on, hopefully a little bit. Won't go on me, hopefully, but it doesn't matter if it does really. I always have a piece of paper underneath my painting surface. Not that it matters much. I've painted this table, the whole table, multiple times. Then I'm just going to wet my brush and just smush this all over. This is not obviously the flowers, this is just the background. I might have them a little bit higher in the middle. The background, that is to say, I'm going to put stems where I'm putting these bushy bits. Smush, smush. Okay, don't spend too long on it, although it's fun. The other dots that are lying around can just be there, kind of thing. That's not a problem. And then I shall take a slightly smaller brush, I think. This one here, for example. And I'll put a little bit more of the violet in my palette. And I'm going to just drop in some colour like this and hope that it will spread sufficiently. You could make the ones in the middle a bit more pronounced than the ones at the side if you want. You don't have to do that. If you feel that you've got a bit too much colour, just dab it out like that. If you feel it's running in a way that you don't really like, just dab it out. But don't worry too much. You can just adjust what you've done, just like this. All right. Because this one is a bit darker. It accidentally went a bit darker than over this side, so we don't really want that. So, okay, so that's that. And then I'm going to put a little bit of blue on as well, which I didn't swatch, but we'll put a bit of ultramarine. Just trying to find out which one is ultramarine. Oh dear. Ultramarine is third one along here, so it's this one. Is it? Well, I'm not sure about that, but whatever it is, it's quite nice. I don't think that's ultramarine, but anyway. So we'll just drop in a few little bits of that here and there. You could call this a drop wash. We're going to sharpen it all up when it's dry, so don't worry. So this is kind of the shadowy parts. I think that is meant to be ultramarine, which is a good thing. That's fine. Okay, so that's that. And then what am I going to do next? Then I think I probably ought to dry it. What do you think? So I will get the hairdryer. You could wait and have a cup of tea. Maybe I'll do that even. I think I'll let that sit and spread a bit more, then I'll put the hairdryer on it. And I'll come back and see where we're going to go next. Okay, so before I get on with the painting, I'm going to interrupt myself yet again, and I'm going to show you this page in my iPad, which is Charlie O'Shield's World Watercolor Month, the official prompt list. And on here as well, you go to worldwatercolormonth.com. On here as well, we have this bit here, which says, this year, artist ambassador Diane Antone has put her own twist on the official prompts. She's created a one-page instructional sheet and a two-page prompt sheet to inspire you all month long or whenever you choose to jump in and paint. And you just click here and it comes up and you can download the prompts that we have created. Okay, so this is page 1, and then there's page 2 and page 3. And on page 2 and 3, we have all the prompts that were created by Angela Fair. All of these ones here, one for each day. And then what we've done is we've selected a colour for each prompt, and then we've given some ideas here for what you can do to try out these colours. The ideas are things like mixing and playing with the colour and giving ideas of what to create. And I think these prompts are really very interesting. I'm really excited by them, actually, because I think they're going to be very inspirational. So I hope that all of you are going to go ahead and print out your 3 pages. There's 1, 2, 3. And if you haven't got some of the colours, either use something similar. I mean, for example, not everybody is going to have lavender. So we have put links on all of them where you can find that colour if you want to purchase it. But of course, you don't have to. You can always use a similar or, something that you already have. It's no problem. At the same time, in order to raise money for his Child Art Foundation, we've contributed a piece of art to his pouch and mug promotion. And here they are. This is what I painted for this year. It's on both sides, which is nice. And the mug is the usual good quality China mug that we know and love. So it's a souvenir. So we've got 3 of them now. One for this year, last year, and the year before. I'm quite proud of those, actually. So I'm going to put all these aside for now, and let's get on with the painting. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in some quite faint stems and things, first of all, and I'm going to use one of these brushes. I'll probably opt for this one, which is a long sword liner. It's by Pro Art, and it's a small size. It's made in England, or at least it's manufactured by a company for an English company called Pro Art. I think they make them themselves in England, but I'm not sure now. But this one is a Daler Rowney. It's a size 4. It's a long round and sometimes called a rigger, so it's longer than usual. These are more easy to find than these, but I will try and put links in the description below if you want to purchase something like this, because they are really, really useful for doing rigging on boats. That's why it's called a rigger, or calligraphic marks like the Japanese do a lot and the Chinese in their paintings, or just stems and leaves and twigs and things like that, and they're quite fun to work with too. So I've mixed up a little bit of olive green together with this blue, which I think is ultramarine, just to make it a little bit more murky, and it's quite faint. And I'm just going to put in, where I've got these columns of purple, I'm going to call those my sprigs of lavender, and I'm making this up as I go along as usual, so I'm not quite sure how it's going to work out because this is the first time I've done it like this. So you're seeing seeing life in the raw, so to speak. So we're going to do that. Don't have them too evenly spaced or too one directional. And we'll put darker ones on later when we come to the finishing stages. But I just want to give myself some idea where my sprigs are hanging out, right? So in other words, where the main patches are. So I think that's probably enough of that. You can get carried away with that if you're not careful. So we'll do that. And then, oh, it's suddenly turning cold in here. Somebody walked over my grave, as they say. Yeah, I'm going to now put in some pale blue petals in the background. Pale blue because that's in the background. It's probably easier to do it before I do the darker shades. So we'll go again to this colour, which I think these must have got swapped around slightly. I think this one is lake blue. Oh, no, I don't think it is. I think it's medium blue. Anyway, it's fine for what I want. And a little bit of purple with it to give us a very light lavender colour. And I'm going to put some of these in the background, and following my rule of trying to only use the same colour once before I change it to something else. That's what we'll try to do. So they're quite random. And then as we go down, we can leave a space. You can fill that in with some stem later if you want. And we just carry on with some more. These ones, as I said, are basically in the background. And you can add much more if you want to. You can always come back and put some more light ones in. Okay, so I'm going to start to increase. I'm going to actually pick up one of these stems, if I can take it out of here and hold it. That will be useful. So, yeah, we'll go, let's start in the middle. This is not meant to be realistic, of course. Put a little bit of green in there too. And then a bit more darker going over. Can just drop the really darker colour into the bottom of these patches, and we'll make a few in the middle. What do you call it? The more kind of dominant, and there is a bit of green in there at the bottom for the shadow, so we'll just use that. Leave a gap. And then another gap, and we have some more down here. I'm using a size 4 Draw Well brush here. And then I'll pick up some dark green. Olive green is good enough for this. And we'll do that. And then I'm going to sharpen up the stem a little bit. Okay, so that's our first one, which I think turned out reasonably well. I was going to use this one that's quite pale. I think we'll put this one over here. So I'm going to go to a very whitish kind of green. So I think I'm actually going to use a bit of white. Remember, we have white gouache. If I can find it, here it is. I'm just going to pop a little tiny bit of that on the palette here. Don't need much. This tube will probably last me 10 years, I expect. So we take that, put that here, put a little bit of green in it, and a little bit of blue. That'll do. And then, so we're going to put this one here, okay? So we'll just put these green pieces like that, and then like that, and then it's got one over here, kind of like that, which I will draw down to here. Then I'll put the stem in here. And it's got another one coming out here. It has a little bit of purple in there. And using the gouache actually automatically makes, the white gouache automatically makes your painting much more static. I think that's the thing. So it's easier to control what you're doing. And I think we'll put actually a couple of long leaves in here. Go to this one. Okie doke, that's okay. And this one has a leaf here too, which you might as well put in. And down here, since we're being kind of botanical to a certain extent here, we can put in this little bud, and then maybe a few squiggles. Okay, you can go back to your water. Okay, and then we're basically going to continue on across the whole thing. Just have a sip of my coffee. What I am going to do next is we're going to paint a bee or two. We're going to put some bees across the top here. I don't know if you're going to be fascinated enough by this whole process of doing all of these lavender leaves to want to watch the whole video. So I might speed it up a little bit. But in the meantime, we're going to do the bee, and we'll start up here. I never draw my bees nowadays. I just paint them, and I do 2 pieces of bee like that, the yellow, and then we go to the black, and I'll make sure that that's not too runny. And we'll just put his head in here. And I like to call my bees croissant bees. It's one of my followers said, your bees remind me of croissants. And I liked that so much, I always say now, just think about croissants when you're painting your bees, and don't bother to give them 6 legs because they look silly with all those legs. But you can make a pretty convincing looking little bee if you just do them like that. So do another one here. And this one will be facing the other way. Give him his head here. And put his antennae, his legs. And the hardest part is getting the wings right, and you do need to just go into that and draw out the shape, modify it if it goes wrong, which it will quite often, but it doesn't matter. There we are, that's fine. So there we are, and now we do one more over here. I think he can be flying this way too. They always say, don't they, don't do things in even numbers, do them in odd numbers, so we have to have 3. I'll try and get the wings right this time. I'll turn him round. Yeah, that's fine, like that. So there we are, lots of these. And I should carry on working on the lavender. I think I might make this one a little bit pinker. And as we go up, we might make it a little bit bluer. And then we'll want some darker, just to put in the bottoms, a bit of shadow, a bit of depth. And now we want a bit of green. It does want a little bit of white in it, so we can get that properly done. When it's completely dry, that one isn't quite yet, you can go back in with some real darks, because as you can see, hopefully, there are some real dark purples in there in places. So we could go to this violet colour, for example, and try to just put something like that. Now, you won't want to necessarily do all of them in great detail, so we could, on the edges, we could just go in and just do sort of basically sploshes like that, and then emphasize the whole thing with the leaves and the stem. So it becomes a little bit more abstract then. And you can use the point of the brush if you want to make it more delicate, although personally I don't really think that is particularly lavender-like, but I suppose it could be said to work. This one here could be in the background more, so he's going to be significantly bluer. And maybe a little bit more, less detail rather, not more, less. You can always tell when I'm having to concentrate on doing a painting because my tendency for my mind to wander off to daily affairs diminishes significantly when I am thinking about how to paint a painting. Like I said, I haven't used this technique before. I don't think. Well, I mean, I've painted lavender before, but I'll just drop in some darks down there, perhaps. And what I want to do actually is, for here, I'm just going to wet, first of all. And then I should go for the pale, and I'm just going to drop in blobs. Have your little tissue handy for when you want to lift something out. I'm going to put another leaf or two here to kind of take away from that very dark one there. I'm going to do another one like that here, so we'll put some blobs in. I'll go for the bluey grey violet, and just drop them in like this. And just let that do its own thing. And put a few ones a little bit more shapely by dabbing into where you haven't put the water. And here we can have a few stems coming up where I think we probably should. Okay, so what have we got over here? Our bees are looking quite happy up there, aren't they? Let us start this one again at the top like this. I know all lavender is not the same. There are, I don't know if there are hundreds or tens, I can't remember now. I remember reading about it recently. I'm not quite sure what it said now, but there are definitely many different types of lavender. So which is why I'm wondering why that one that hasn't opened is ever going to open, because it's a new one that we just put in. And it's a possibility that it is not going to have any colour other than the grey, but the grey is lovely too. I really like that. So we just put the green in as well, and we'll put just dab that out a little bit at the top to give more variety of colour. I tend to be a bit heavy-handed. I don't mind admitting it. So my paintings often are not as airy as they could be. Trying to actually improve that by using a different technique, which is the technique of, as we've talked about quite a lot, I'm going to talk about it again, using a different thing, which actually is heavier. So that is to say, using gouache, which is a heavier kind of thing, hoping that the contrast will have an effect on my brain and help me to be more light. You never know your luck. Because gouache is definitely a heavier paint, being as it's full of chalk, basically. Couldn't help it, could it? Couldn't help but be heavier since it's full of chalk. And notice how I've kept to a very restricted palette on this. You see some pictures of lavender online and so on that are quite overly complicated with all sorts of colours and things, but I'm not sure that that's a terribly good idea, really. I'm going to put this one, no, not that one, this one. I'm going to put one here in the background so it can come across, interlocking with this one behind. I wanted to say, I said the other day that I was going to try to read and listen and watch all the David Attenborough programs that I've missed over the years, because we lived abroad for a lot of the time that he was producing his natural history things in England. I wasn't in England, and we didn't necessarily have television. We were in Canada, we were in Yemen, we were in Egypt, we were here in France, in the Bahamas, in Bermuda, not on holiday, I might say. We were there because of my husband's work. I'm going to lighten these ones up a bit. I feel they came out a bit too dark, so we're just going to see if we can wet them a little bit. Anyway, so I didn't see most of his stuff. I think I watched most of Life on Earth. So I've got a lot to make up because he, in his 100-year-long life, has certainly produced a lot of very good stuff. Anyway, I've finished reading Life on Air, which is his account of all the things that he produced for the BBC. And now I'm on to something called Life Stories, which is shorter versions of some of the stories that he's actually included in there. And we've started watching Wildlife on One on BBC as well, which is in the BBC archive. They've got a lot of really good stuff in there, because I think the television that they expect us to watch nowadays is a complete travesty. And I have no intention of ever watching broadcast TV ever again, as long as I live, because it's just appalling rubbish, intended for young people who have no sense, no brains, no taste. That doesn't mean all young people have no sense, no brains, and no taste, but this is intended for people who just want to be entertained. And it's nice to, perhaps there are occasionally good programs on, but you have to wade through so much dross to get to them. My life's too short for that, so I'm not going to bother. And I'm planning on spending the whole of this year, despite perhaps some objections from the family. I don't know whether anyone's going to disagree with this idea, because we usually sit and watch television together at lunchtime and in the evening. That's the only time, just for an hour each day, half an hour here, half an hour there. Because there's a lot of very interesting stuff in what he says. So I'm finding it quite entertaining. So there we are. I think that's probably enough for our lavender. I'm going to put a few strokes of darker in. I'm not sure if I want to use the rigor or I think the lack of control might be a bit too great. What do you think? I've stuck to one green. I've stuck to olive green. I've diluted it a bit with some blue. This blue here, which I think is called mid blue in this set. And I'm thinking, I always put these things right up the middle, which is always a bad idea. Just a little bit of darks, few darks. Not completely confident about my ability to use this brush. The thing to do is to stop talking and start painting, really. That one still looks a bit dark, so I'm going to have to put a few dark veins in some of these ones. Not necessarily veins, but just darks. And you can make really quite nice dark lines with this brush if it obeys your command. That's better. Oh, this one doesn't have anything connecting it to, God forbid, sorry, heaven forbid, am I allowed to say that? Person who doesn't like me saying God. Heaven forbid. I've forgotten what I was going to say now. Anyway, let's forbid that and move on. Can soften those up with some more blue. And I'm going to stop there. Before I spoil what I think is halfway decent. I like the bees, don't you? It's funny sometimes how things dry darker than you think they're going to. Is this the trouble with watercolour? I could try lightening that up a little bit with some white. Let's do that. That makes me happier. But not too much, because if you do too much, then it ends up looking as if you painted chalk all over your painting. So we won't do that too much. So that's it. Okay, so don't forget about the World Watercolour Month, which, as we have explained, is a very good thing indeed. You can have your special 10th anniversary. I forgot to mention that. It's the 10th anniversary World Watercolour Month. And as founded by Charlie O'Shields in 2016. And you can download this, which is created by us, and 2 other sheets as well with the information. And I will be doing a painting every day, following the prompts quite closely this month to find out if I can actually ever learn to paint. So I will let you go now, and I hope you enjoyed that. We have one much more prominent. I'm probably going to make these 2 a little bit darker, perhaps, but I don't know. I'm going to critique my own painting here, okay? Now, this is partly because I was doing it while I was talking and I wasn't paying enough attention, but I'm going to critique it because this one is a little bit too prominent. It matches this one more or less, but they're parallel and they shouldn't be. So I need to take the emphasis away from this one a bit. And the only way I can think of doing that would be to increase this one, perhaps. I think that one probably. So I'm going to say goodbye now, and I'm going to go ahead and do that. And if you hear me screaming in the background, it's because it's all gone badly wrong. So bye, everybody. Bye-bye.